A rich man refuses to tip a waitress. When he learns who she is, he regrets everything. Michael Hammond strode into La Belle Époque, his Italian leather shoes clicking on the polished marble floor. The maitre d' hurried over, bowing obsequiously. "Your usual table, Mr. Hammond?" Michael gave a curt nod, not bothering to make eye contact. He was led to a prime corner booth, the plush velvet seat sinking slightly under his weight as he sat. A waiter materialized at his elbow. "The Chateaubriand for one, extra rare," Michael ordered without glancing at the menu. "And a bottle of the Chateau Lafite." As the waiter scurried off, Michael leaned back, surveying the glittering trappings of wealth surrounding him with satisfaction. This was his element. The restaurant catered to the elite of the elite, and he had clawed his way to the very top of that exclusive ladder. He barely noticed the waitress who poured his wine, a quiet slip of a girl named Emily with large soulful eyes. But she noticed him. How could she not? Michael Hammond was a force to be reckoned with, the power player who had built an empire on ruthless tactics and shark-like aggression. When Emily returned with his steak, Michael waved her away impatiently. He ate mechanically, checking stocks on his phone between bites. He didn't come here for the food, but for what it represented. After signing the exorbitant check with a flourish, Michael stood to leave. Emily hovered by the table. "Thank you for dining with us, Mr. Hammond," she said softly. "I hope you have a wonderful evening." She smiled at him hopefully. As a single mother putting herself through night school, Emily depended on the generosity of patrons like Michael to help make ends meet. But Michael flicked a dismissive glance at her. "I don't do handouts," he said coldly before turning on his heel and striding out, leaving Emily standing there, hurt and bewildered, tears stinging her eyes. Lily Jenkins hummed quietly to herself as she rolled out dough for her famous cherry turnovers. The cozy kitchen of Mama J's Cafe was redolent with the warm, buttery scent of fresh baking. With her silvery braids and gentle eyes that crinkled at the corners, Lily radiated a nurturing, maternal energy. For decades, she had been a fixture in this little community, doling out hugs and homemade treats, always with a compassionate ear and wise word for anyone who needed it. While her turnovers were the undisputed star of Mama J's, it was Lily herself who was the heart and soul of the place. Long ago, she had founded the cafe as a welcoming sanctuary, a refuge where people of all walks of life could gather and connect. Over the years, Lily had mentored countless lost souls who came through her doors, the lonely teenager in search of a kind word, the recently widowed man learning to cook for one, the single parent juggling bills and bedtime stories. To each and every one, she gave her time, her empathy, and her unwavering belief in their potential. The bell over the cafe door jangled and Emily walked in, her waitress uniform rumpled and her eyes red-rimmed. Lily took one look at her daughter's distraught face and immediately enfolded her in a hug. "Oh, my sweet pea, what happened?" She led Emily to a chair and poured her a steaming cup of chamomile. Through halting sobs, Emily recounted the humiliating scene with Michael Hammond. "I just don't understand how someone can be so cruel," she hiccuped miserably. Lily stroked her hair soothingly. "Some people wrap themselves in armor so tightly, they forget what it feels like to be vulnerable. To connect. That's his loss, not yours." She pressed Emily's hand. "Never forget, Emija, your worth isn't defined by how others treat you. You have a good heart and you work so hard. I'm so proud of the woman you are." Emily gave a watery but grateful smile. Her mother had a way of making even the darkest clouds pass. If anyone could understand the sting of a rich man's callousness, it was Lily, and if she could rise above it with her spirit intact, then so could Emily. Michael's days passed in a blur of boardroom power plays and multi-million-dollar deals, a cutthroat world where the strong devoured the weak and nice guys finished last. He lived a life of lavish luxury, but the relentless pace left him hollow. His gilded penthouse echoed emptily, and his king-sized bed felt as vast and cold as the Siberian tundra. For all his wealth and prestige, he was profoundly, achingly alone. But Michael didn't dwell on that aching chasm inside himself. Instead, he attacked each day with ruthless precision, dispatching underlings, crushing competitors, moving chess pieces in his quest for domination. Vulnerability was weakness, he reminded himself. Caring was losing. He had clawed his way from a dirt-poor childhood to the pinnacle of power, and he'd done it by armoring himself in steely exceptionalism. Until one crisp, windy day in October, when his armor cracked. Michael was striding purposefully down the sidewalk, his mind churning through profit-loss statements, when he collided hard with someone. The impact sent the other person sprawling to the pavement, and Michael stumbled back, aggrieved and disoriented. He looked down to see Emily, the waitress from La Belle Époque, struggling to collect an explosion of papers that had scattered everywhere. "Sorry," she gasped, cheeks pink with mortification as she scrambled after the wind-tossed pages. "I'm so sorry, I didn't see you." Something in her flustered apology needled him, a reminder of his own callousness that night at the restaurant. Michael was surprised to feel an unfamiliar twinge in his gut. Was it guilt? He shook it off brusquely, stepping around Emily and continuing on his way without a word, his jaw tight. But in his coat pocket, his fingers brushed a stray paper he'd unknowingly picked up when they collided. He pulled it out. It was a physics exam, heavily wrinkled but meticulously filled out. And at the top, scrawled in red pen, 96% great work, Emily. He stared at it for a long moment, his brow furrowed. Somehow, that one page humanized Emily in a way he was entirely unprepared for. She wasn't just a servant, she was a person. With dreams and ambitions, and a life beyond refilling the wine glasses of the rich. Michael folded the paper and tucked it back into his pocket, his stride slowing as a pensive frown tugged at his mouth. How many other people had he dismissed and degraded without a second thought? That frown stayed with him all day, unsettling in its novelty. For the first time in a long time, the Teflon veneer of Michael's world felt just a little less impenetrable. As the weeks passed, Michael found his thoughts returning to Emily with increasing frequency. After their literal run-in on the sidewalk, he began to notice her more and more at La Belle Époque. He would watch surreptitiously as she flitted between tables, marveling at the genuine warmth of her smile, the gentle encouragement she offered to frazzled fellow servers. She treated the dishwashers and busboys with the same respect as the celebrity clientele, a rarity in a world as stratified as the restaurant industry. Slowly, grudgingly, he began to acknowledge that perhaps he had underestimated her. There was a quiet strength in Emily, a resilience that belied her slight frame and youthful face. One evening, as Emily was clearing his table, Michael surprised them both by breaking the frosty silence that had characterized their interactions thus far. "How are your physics classes going?" he asked abruptly. Emily blinked, taken aback. They're going well, thank you," she replied cautiously. "I'm hoping to apply to engineering school next year." Michael digested that, something like respect kindling in his chest. "That's impressive," he said gruffly. "Not an easy field." A flicker of pride lit Emily's eyes. "No, it's not. But I'm determined to build a good life for my daughter and me." Daughter. The word landed like a mallet, cracking the already straining facade of Michael's worldview. This young woman was not only working herself to the bone and excelling in a challenging academic field, she was doing it all as a single parent. He thought of his own mother, an embittered factory worker who toiled in thankless obscurity to keep food on the table. She died young, ground down by a hard life, and Michael had vowed to claw his way out of poverty, to never be powerless again. And yet here was Emily's kind, hard-working Emily facing adversity with more grit and grace than he could ever muster. It unsettled him deeply. Long after Emily had left, her words echoed in his mind, "I'm determined to build a good life." Over the years, he had built towering skyscrapers and glittering fortunes. But what kind of life had he actually built? How good could it be if he measured it only in square footage and stock portfolios? After his conversation with Emily, Michael felt a growing itch of discontent, an unshakable sense that something fundamental had shifted in his bedrock. His drive to conquer and control felt suddenly hollow in the face of Emily's earnest striving. He found himself engaging more with the restaurant staff, really seeing them as people for the first time. He left generous tips and began to request Emily as his server. They struck up tentative conversations which slowly grew warmer, more familiar. Michael learned about Lily's cafe and the countless lives she touched. He heard stories of the homework club she hosted for underprivileged kids, the community food drives she organized, the microloans she provided to help local entrepreneurs chase their dreams. Lily was, he came to understand, so much more than a kindly grandmother doling out turnovers. She was a force for grassroots change, a one-woman social justice warrior armed only with an open heart and unshakable conviction. "Your mom is an incredible woman," he told Emily one evening after she'd finished regaling him with Lily's latest neighborhood improvement project. "She really is," Emily agreed, her smile tinged with wistful pride. "Growing up, we never had much. But she always made me feel like I could reach the moon if I wanted to. She seems to have that effect on a lot of people," Michael mused. "I can't think of anyone in my circles who even comes close." Emily regarded him thoughtfully. "It's never too late to expand your circles." The words lodged in Michael's chest, a challenge and invitation. Without quite realizing it, he'd already begun to gravitate into Lily and Emily's orbit, their world of empathy and connection. What would happen if he let himself drift further from his familiar constellation of wealth and power? If he loosened his white-knuckled grip on the cynical, jaded persona he'd cultivated for so long? It was a dizzying prospect. But for the first time, Michael felt a flicker of something that might have been excitement, even hope, at the thought of finding out. The invitation arrived on heavy cream cardstock, elegant and understated. Michael turned it over in his hands, pulse quickening as he read the graceful script. "You are cordially invited to a gala celebrating the launch of the Lily Jenkins Foundation, empowering community changemakers." His mind spooled back to that day on the sidewalk, the physics quiz fluttering in the wind. To his chilly dismissal of Emily's thanks that first fateful night at the restaurant. In light of all he'd learned about Lily and Emily since then, his actions stung with fresh shame. But the invitation, that felt like something else. A peace offering, perhaps. Or an opportunity to step more fully into this world of warmth and purpose that had begun to exert a gravitational pull on him. He RSVP'd immediately. On the night of the gala, Michael walked into a transformed Mama J's cafe. The humble storefront had been strung with twinkling lights and lush garlands. Servers passed trays of Lily's signature canapes, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. But the real magic was in the crowd itself. Michael saw people from every walk of life, politicians and plumbers, bankers and bus drivers, all united in their affection for Lily and their enthusiasm for her mission. The air crackled with a collective sense of potential and purpose. In the eye of that vibrant human hurricane was Lily herself, resplendent in a flowing turquoise gown the color of the Caribbean Sea. When she saw Michael, her face creased into a smile and she beckoned him over. "I'm so glad you could make it," she said warmly, pressing his hand. "I'm honored to be here," Michael replied, and for once, he actually meant it. As he listened to Lily's impassioned speech about the foundation's goals, microgrants for fledgling entrepreneurs, mentorship programs for at-risk youth, organic gardens in underserved neighborhoods, Michael felt something swell in his chest. It was more than admiration for this extraordinary woman who had raised a daughter like Emily. It was a deep, almost cellular recognition that this was what he wanted his legacy to be. Not cold, sterile transactions, but connection and transformation. When Lily finished to a standing ovation, Michael was one of the first on his feet. He sought her out afterwards, his eyes bright with conviction. "I want to help," he said fervently. "With the foundation. In any way I can." Lily smiled at him, a smile full of knowing grace, as though she'd seen this building up in him. "I had a feeling you might say that. Let's talk." In the weeks that followed, Michael threw himself into supporting the Lily Jenkins Foundation with the same fervor he'd once channeled into hostile takeovers. Except this time, his energy was focused on building up instead of tearing down. He leveraged his expansive network and business acumen to secure major donors, corporate sponsorships, top-tier strategic partners. He poured over grant applications and budgets, determined to maximize the foundation's impact. Along the way, he found himself spending more and more time with Lily and Emily. Strategy sessions over homemade caramel apple pie at Mama J's segued into animated discussions of Emily's engineering projects. Investor pitches were interspersed with shared laughter at Lily's gentle ride jokes. For the first time Michael could remember, he woke up excited to start each day, energized by a sense of purpose and connection. The thrill of the deal was nothing compared to the warmth that suffused him when he saw a struggling single mother's face light up at the news that her dream of owning a small business was being funded by the foundation. One crisp fall evening, Michael met Emily for coffee at their favorite local bookshop. She bounded up to him, cheeks flushed with accomplishment and a white envelope clutched in her hand. "I got in," she burst out, eyes shining. "To the engineering program. And a full scholarship from the foundation. I can't believe it." Before he quite knew what was happening, Emily had pulled Michael into an exuberant hug. After a startled moment, he returned the embrace fiercely, his heart swelling with pride and affection. "You did it," he said gruffly. "I always knew you would. You're going to be an absolutely incredible engineer." As they settled into worn armchairs with steaming lattes, Emily fixed Michael with an intent look. "You know, none of this would be possible without you," she said softly. "The scholarship, the foundation, the way you've turned your influence toward helping others. I'm just so grateful." Michael ducked his head, unaccustomed to such earnest praise. "I should be thanking you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You and your mom. You've completely changed the way I see the world. The way I want to be in it." Emily reached out and squeezed his hand, her smile knowing and tender. "Funny how that works, isn't it? How opening yourself up to others' experiences can shift your entire perspective." Michael nodded slowly, wonderingly, still a little stunned by the utter sea change his life had undergone in mere months. From a cold, grasping pursuit of gain to the soul-deep contentment of connecting with people, investing in a brighter collective future. He hadn't lost himself. He'd finally found himself. And he had this remarkable young woman and her visionary mother to thank for that epiphany. As he sat there savoring the warmth of Emily's presence, the prospect of engineering studies ahead of her, Michael knew one thing for certain: there was no going back. Only forward, into a world brimming with hope and human potential just waiting to be nurtured and nourished. As the foundation's work expanded, so too did Michael's sense of connection and belonging. He had never experienced such a vibrant and diverse community, people of all ages, backgrounds, and walks of life united by a shared commitment to lifting each other up. There was Andre, the formerly incarcerated youth who had found purpose and direction through the Foundation's mentorship program. With Michael's guidance, he was now pursuing a degree in social work, determined to pay forward the second chance he'd been given. There was Lila, the single mother who had started a thriving catering business with a microgrant from the foundation. Her delectable samosas were now the talk of the town, and she employed a dozen other struggling women, providing them with steady income and a supportive sisterhood. And there were countless others, each with a unique story of resilience and transformation, each a testament to the power of community and compassion. Through it all, Lily was the beating heart of the foundation, the guiding light that kept them all oriented toward their North Star of service and empowerment. And Emily, with her keen mind and compassionate spirit, was emerging as a leader in her own right, spearheading innovative STEM education initiatives for underserved girls. Michael marveled at the ripple effects of Lily and Emily's influence, how their quiet, steadfast efforts had created a tidal wave of positive change. And he felt humbled and grateful to be a part of it, to have found a purpose so much greater than his own narrow self-interest. But even as the foundation soared to new heights, challenges emerged. A planned affordable housing development faced fierce opposition from wealthy NIMBY types who feared it would lower their property values. Key funding grants were held up in bureaucratic red tape. Staff burnout began to take its toll, as the intense emotional labor of the work caught up with even the most dedicated changemakers. Through it all, Michael leaned on the leadership lessons he'd learned from Lily and Emily, the importance of leading with empathy, of investing in people, of maintaining hope and resolve in the face of adversity. He mediated tense community meetings with patience and grace, drawing on his business acumen to find creative solutions that balanced competing needs. He rallied donors and volunteers, inspiring them with the stories of lives transformed by the Foundation's work. And he instituted regular staff retreat days at Mama J's, ensuring that self-care and connection remained at the heart of their shared mission. Slowly but surely, they weathered each storm, emerging stronger, wiser, and more committed to their cause. And through it all, the bonds between Michael, Lily, and Emily only deepened, forged in the fire of shared struggle and triumph. As Emily neared graduation, Michael found himself reflecting on the profound journey he had undertaken since that fateful first meeting at La Belle Époque. He had started as a man armored in cynicism and self-interest, seeing the world as a zero-sum game of ruthless competition. But through the unwavering compassion and conviction of Lily and Emily, he had experienced a radical moral reorientation. He had learned to see the humanity in every person, to measure success not in dollars but in lives uplifted, to find joy and meaning in service to something greater than himself. And as he watched Emily cross the stage to receive her hard-earned diploma, her eyes shining with pride and purpose, he knew that her journey was only beginning. That she would go on to shape the world in ways he could scarcely imagine, and that he would be right there beside her, supporting her every step of the way. The years passed in a blur of growth and transformation for the Foundation, for the community it served, and for Michael himself. Under his strategic leadership and Lily's moral guidance, the organization became a national model for community-driven change. But even as they expanded their reach, the heart of their work remained rooted in the small acts of kindness and connection that had started at all the hot meals and warm hugs at Mama J's, the one-on-one mentoring sessions, the shared laughter and tears at community gatherings. And at the center of it all were Lily and Emily, the guiding lights that kept Michael anchored to his newfound purpose. In Lily, he found the mother figure he had never had, the wise and loving presence that saw the best in him and gently shepherded him to be his highest self. And in Emily, he found a partner in vision and service, a brilliant, compassionate soul who challenged and inspired him every day. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with, the testament to the power of love and connection to transform not just individuals, but entire communities. And so it was that on a balmy spring evening, in the rosy glow of the sunset over Mama J's cafe, Michael found himself on bended knee before the two women who had changed his life so profoundly. With tears in his eyes and a voice thick with emotion, he poured out his heart, expressing the depths of his gratitude, his admiration, and his unwavering commitment to their shared mission. He spoke of the man he had been cold, closed off, myopically fixated on wealth and power, and the man they had helped him become open, empathetic, devoted to a purpose greater than himself. And then, with a trembling hand, he reached into his pocket and produced a small velvet box. Inside, nestled in creamy satin, was a ring, a simple band of gold engraved with the words hope, love, community. "Emily," he said softly, his eyes locked on hers, "you have been my guiding light, my partner in purpose, my dearest friend. I cannot imagine my life without you in it. Would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" For a long, breathless moment, the world seemed to stand still, the only sound the gentle rustle of the wind through the magnolia trees. And then, with tears spilling down her cheeks and a radiant smile breaking across her face, Emily whispered, "Yes." As Michael slipped the ring onto her finger, Lily stepped forward and enfolded them both in her arms. "My beautiful children," she murmured, her voice rich with emotion. "I am so unspeakably proud of the love and light you have brought into this world. Together, you will move mountains." And there, bathed in the golden light of the fading day, their hearts full to bursting with gratitude and hope, Michael and Emily sealed their love with a kiss, a promise of all the joy and purpose and transformation yet to come.